Hello everyone. Good morning. Ayubowan and Vanakkam. I hope you guys are doing well. And my name is Saffran Mihnar from Sri Lanka, and right now in Los Angeles. And I hope you are staying well and safe due to the current COVID-19 situation that the whole world is facing. So, welcome to the live Facebook Live and all the other live medias. And we're going to talk about to see how the importance of the green economic growth. Today, humanity is facing one of the greatest public health crises since the Spanish flu that we had in 1918. And today we have come together to leaving aside our egos and pride to tackle the whole issue of COVID-19 today. And it has infected nearly 3 million people all around the world, and it's affecting more and more cities. And you can also see that the whole world is currently going through a lockdown process where cities are shut down, countries are shut down, and you can see the whole the labor market and also job opportunities. Everything has become a pause, I would say, or it's moving in a very very slower pace that you can see how the whole world is operating. And we also need to understand that it is more important for us also to think that how we can, as you all know, that we are also going through an economic recession, like the IMF recently declared that we are in an economic recession. That means how are we going to come through it? And one of the main topic is, and one of the biggest crises that we are facing today is also climate change. Climate change has been one of the devastating things that you can see, has caused so much of death, so much of damage to the world that we are living in. And unfortunately, we are not taking enough measures for us to be able to uh, make sure that we have a livable planet for the next generation. And as you see today, our health systems are really tested, and our first responders and medical workers are sacrificing their sleep and our essential workers, essential needs, and they're serving and they're helping, and a lot of people have come together since we are facing a global crisis. Firstly, I would also like to remind people that as serious that we take the issue of COVID-19, we also need to think about climate change because that's also happening. We really need to treat the environment, climate crisis as we treat the COVID-19 situation. Climate change is also real. You can see catastrophic disasters that's happening all around the world, and it has been recorded recently that this year would be some of one of the hottest year that will be recorded on the uh, planet history. And today, many countries have been put into the situation of the economic struggle, and there's a lot of losers of job, and there's a lot of factories has been shut down, and there's been a lot of the market has been closed due to the COVID-19 situation, and where they are not to be able to operate. So I would like to touch upon the most important thing is that how we can recover when we do an economic recovery from this point, from the whole COVID-19 situation. It's most important thing that we see is that we need to make sure that it is a climate friendly economic development. So where we see net zero economic development, which is the most promising thing, and so that how we can reach according to the Paris Agreement. And if you all know, in 2015, the whole world came together and we had a wonderful agreement to tackle climate change, that is Paris Agreement, and how we can help countries and also industrial factories and also private sector industries towards leaning towards achieving the global climate target, so keeping the emission below 1.5 degrees. So, as we see today, the global manufacturing sector has really suffered its worst contraction since the 2009 to 2009 recession. According to the recent Goldman Sachs forecast in zero learning growth in a lot of US companies, you can see where it's according to the US, according to the Goldman Sachs forecast. They say that many companies are facing real problems, really a financial crisis. While, for example, airlines industry, cruise line industry are feeling the biggest impact due to the situation of COVID-19. At the same time, you can see there's an uprise of global disruption where there is, you can see, since all these industrialized economy, sorry, factories have been shut down, the need for energy has gone down, and it's really has drastically dropped. For example, if you take China, they have dropped from 15% for to 15% from 40% since they began since the crisis began, and roughly there have been 25% of drop from 40% to 15% of the whole emission in China, for example, if you take as one country. But at the same time, you can take a lot of other European countries and a lot of countries where you can see there has been a major um, decline of airline industries and airline services, and at the same time, you can also see factories have been shut down due to the due to the COVID-19 situation. And if this emission reduction, this emission reduction was caused by economic downturn, for this whole sphere that we are in, it's a temporary. We are going to recover, and they also predict that a recovery process could lead into more emission. So we have to be very careful. We might think about the growth of the economy, and we might think about, okay, we need to recover, we need to bring back the jobs. But at the same time, there is also a huge, I would say, uh, a hurdle that we need to pass. We need to see how we can tackle it, because the emission could boost up once we are in a recovery process. As soon as we find a vaccine, and as soon as the global markets open again, there's going to be escalation of carbon emission. So will we be able to control this emission? At the same time, we will be able to make sure that we go in a development process in the development process. So where how since the failure, since the lockdown of cities and factories and countries, they also one of the things that governments, as you must have seen, there's a lot of stimulus package that all the a lot of leading governments and many of the national governments are trying to help small businesses. They're trying to help industrial factories and people as well, to how they can recover from this and support the recovery process. So, what I really feel is that a recovery process from COVID 19 should be able to lead to a greener economic a greener economic development, because this is one of the best chance that we have, because this is something, COVID-19 was something that we didn't expect, and we have got the unexpected. But it's also important for us to think whether we can use this situation, at the same time achieve what we need to achieve in the perspective of achieving the 1.5 degrees under the Paris Agreement, and the same time reaching the climate neutrality. And that neutrality could be reached in many ways, and one of the ways could be, one of the best way it could be, is that to see how we can reduce it, sorry, achieve it by having a greener economic growth. So if you talk about a little bit of climate change, just to give a perspective. So every country, as you all know, there was a Paris Agreement, as I said before, and every country have to have submitted their nationally determined contribution to the Paris Agreement, and countries have to work towards achieving the global target to keep it 1.5 below 1.5, and plan the whole. They have left from 10 years from 2020 to 2030 to achieve their voluntarily given targets to the Paris Agreement. But if at the face of how we are going in the current situation, it would be difficult for us to achieve this goal if we don't act now. That's the most important thing. And we and the world right now situation has really given us a good um, a good opportunity for us to accelerate our climate action, at the same time accelerate to have a green economic growth, because COVID-19 situation definitely has brought down the whole world. There's a recession, that economic recession that we are facing through. And what I wanted to see is that what I wanted to discuss here is that to see how climate action could be a key economic recovery and a long-term perspective. What's going to be the how we're going to talk about that. And if you take as again COVID-19 as outbreak shows without a shadow of doubt that governments ability to take urgent action. It's a clear example how governments and organizations and private sector is really making their full force to make sure that they take radical action to contain this crisis. Why can't we do the same thing to tackle the climate change? That's the most important thing as well. So, however, as we are in the mid of this immediate crisis, we need to be clear. Like when we try to respond to our short term economic downturn, where we could lead, I mean, with a bad long term investment would not make sense. If we try to have a short term response, and if we try to economic down with a bad long term investment, it would not make. Instead, where we can use this opportunity to stimulate measures to boost following the COVID-19 health crisis, at the same time to scrub the air pollution at that, so that we can help the climate crisis. We can, as you all can see, that there's unprecedented actions that we have been taking towards climate change as well. So beginning before the beginning of 2020, or we see, I would say, from first 2 months. I mean, the whole world's focus just was diverted to climate change process. So what I wanted to say is that, and what some of the things that we need to make sure we need to know is that when we are something that we need to also think is that it is clearly evident that no matter how rich our economy is today, the humanitarian health crisis that we are going through will affect everyone. It's an example. It's going to be the same if we don't take climate change as serious. Climate crisis will have the same impact, global impact, which cannot be reversed. And we are guided by the science in finding a research for a vaccine to fight COVID-19. But I would also say, uh, why can't we use the best available science, like unite behind the science and use the available vaccine known as the national determined contribution to the Paris Agreement to fight against climate change? As you all know, the IPCC report, special report on land and climate change, concluded that the dryland population vulnerable to water stress and drought intensity and habitat degradation could reach 178 million by 2050. To avoid such scenarios, The report clearly says that we need to have prompt action on climate mitigation. It's also estimated the cost of upfront investment in sustainable land use management practice and technology could range from little as 220 to $500 per hectare. That's really devastating to see. And then you can also see how in recent weeks you may have seen that there has been drastic drops of carbon emission that is, as I told before, due to the lockdown, strict travel issues enforced by governments. And also you can see how the planet is recovering. The air quality has increased in highly industrial countries as the biggest polluters, airlines and factories lay dormant. Like they are being forced to land because of the crisis that we are facing. And that brings us to a conclusion, or I would say that brings us to an um, a opening that nature is healing itself from our inhuman action against the planet. The planet demonstrates its capacity to recover. That's very completely visible for us. So we need to make sure how an economic recovery, especially in a recovery process, this could really help us to so that we are in the process of achieving the climate neutrality target, or I would say climate neutrality, but most of the people they say as carbon neutral, and whatever in which ways we could take, which is the best thing. But I would say it's climate neutrality, and by 2050 there it's really you can see the urgency the climate crisis has shown and need immediate measures drastically to cut emissions, and the opportunity to do so is given today so that we go with a cleaner technology and that with a falling cost that has been never that has could be never even better. While this, I mean, as you can see also the restrictions are, while these restrictions are there, travels and large meetings are challenging turn, they may also help to shift our work behavior. You can also see that today people are working from office, from home, where you could work from office. There's a lot of meetings happening online, and you can also see there are a lot of discussion online where there are also meetings happening online where you, I mean, we don't. That's a good example that shows that we could also work in this way. That's an education, and also we can see how a lot of works online businesses. I mean, of course, we had online business before, but this has accelerated, and how we interconnect with people and the usage of internet. Of course, the whole world is getting more and more connected, and we have virtual meetings, networking sessions that's happening online. So it's clearly evident that for us to go to a green economic growth, this we this could be a setting the stage for us, because if we cannot put climate emergency as a priority when we are in a recovery process from the economic recession that we are facing, it's going to be really, really hard to reverse the global catastrophe and climate action. It's very hard. We have reached a point where we can't go back in the time, and which is the most important that we need to understand. And finally, I would also this no 2 points. I would say is that nevertheless you could be wherever you could be. You could be in the northern hemisphere. You could be in the southern hemisphere today, or in the Caribbean islands. You could be in the Pacific islands. Wherever the world, it's very clear, evident that the COVID-19 has impacted many of us, and it's going to be the same when we see the impact of climate change. It isn't going to be. It's not going to be impacting only on certain areas. It's going to raise everything, and we are running out of time. If we want a livable future for our for the younger generation, and also the future generation which are going to be in this world. We uh, it, we need to recover, and the recovery process where governments should primarily focus today to boost the economy. At the same time, they need to consider, they need to really economic boost with climate action. That's the most important thing that we really need to say see. And 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 lastly, I would like to say is that maintain social distancing, guys, and try to be connected with your friends, families. This is also the time to show solidarity and care for everyone who has been affected by the current global pandemic crisis. At the same time, if we need to also give a break to the planet, and I think the good side of the whole situation, of course, we are losing a lot of lives, which is most important thing. But at the same time, if you be in the perspective of the side of the planet, it's really recovering. The planet that gave us basic needs, shelter, is been having its capability to recover. If we continue to damage, it will reach an irreversible point where we will be not be able to go back to normal life. COVID-19 will be able to go back from COVID-19, but if there is a big if climate change goes out of the control of human, we cannot reverse the actions. But we can win this if we can win this race against the global health crisis. Undoubtedly, we also can win the race to tackle climate change. But we also need to learn to see how we can use the current, how we can use the benefit out of the current situation that the whole world is facing. Climate change is real and we need to act now. There is no tomorrow for us to say, let's do it tomorrow. If we don't act now, we undoubtedly will not, we doubtfully will not have a livable planet. Therefore, I kindly request every one of us and whoever is watching this to see that how to declare the emergency, the climate emergency, as we recover process, as we are in the planning of recovering from COVID-19. At the same time, make sure that we go through a green growth in a green economic development process so that we be able to save this planet, at the same time keep it as livable for future generation to come. And that's and once again, thank you very much for listening to me, and I hope this was insightful. And looking forward to your comments and your questions. So thank you once again for listening to me, and I hope you guys are staying safe, maintain social distancing, I would say physical distancing, and try to see how you can contribute in all the ways that you can. Talk to your friends, talk to your families. There will be a lot of people who have been suffering in many other ways, so that make sure that you can help them the ways that you can, especially mentally. People are also stressed out due to the current situation, of course, everyone, and that's something that we can show a solidarity for the whole global citizen, because we are a citizen of this world. And thank you very much. Stay safe and save lives. Thank you.